Hey everybody, John Huber here, Maryland Education Network, brought to you by Maryland K-12. Today is Tuesday. It is November 29th, and there's a couple little things right around the corner I want to make you aware of. Tomorrow in Anne Arundel County, 11:30 in the morning, the Board of Education is holding this public session where they're meeting with the State Superintendent to talk about issues relating to Anne Arundel County. There's no public comment being garnered or being considered there, but it's an opportunity if you want to just go and see in person. I don't think it's being put on the publicly like on Zoom or YouTube or something like that. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can't find out. But anyway, that's going on tomorrow. Thursday night in Baltimore County, something really interesting going on there. There is a meeting between some folks from Baltimore County and the Maryland Safe Schools to talk about school safety, behavior, discipline, all that kind of stuff. That's always an interesting topic. So if you want to see some fun times in the world of education, watch Thursday night at on BCPS, and I will definitely be tuning into that fun little escapade. Who knows what happens, and hopefully it'll all be professional. But you never know. It's a very, very difficult topic. Speaking of very difficult topics, this morning in Baltimore City, we see some more news about grades. It all stems from the grade changing scandals that we've heard in Baltimore City. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to try and talk a little bit about this. Hope I don't go on too long, but there's a lot more that's going on here when it comes to these Baltimore City grading policies. First of all, the city was sued by Fox News for not producing documents because people had been complaining. People have been accusing them of doing this sort of thing, and they didn't do it, or they refused to turn over the news, or turn over the evidence, or the emails and whatnot. So, in I want to say 2007 or 2017, I can't remember. Don't quote me on the dates. Fox News sued them, and they won. And the school system turned over, thousands of emails to Fox News. So the lesson here, number one, is when you're on someone else's server and you're emailing somebody, that is not your property. So ask John Gruden, or anybody who has been emailing and whatnot on a company server. It is not your property. So anything is fair game, especially teachers. Anything you email back and forth, you don't own it. It's on their server. They own it, not you. But anyway, they got these thousands of emails, and they clearly showed a pattern of coercion. I forget the exact word they used. Pressure up to teachers to pass students who should not have been passed. Then, as a result of that, they changed they created this new policy. They created some a policy to hopefully correct it. And come to find out in 2019, I think it was, the state did a little bit of an audit, whatever. They found out that they had not corrected it, that almost 3,000 or so students' grades had been changed between or since the new policy went in effect. They went back to like 2015 to 2021 or whatever it was. I can't remember. And they basically said that, even though this policy has changed, you're still doing it. So we're waiting to see when these new grades come out what this will look like. But when it comes to student grades, there's a lot going on behind the curtain, if you will. So let's talk about that for a second. Student grades, there's multiple levels of grades. There's the grade for the marking period, then there's the grade for the end of the year, and there's grades within each marking period. The teacher is the sole, or is supposed to be the sole and individual giver of grades. It is the teacher's responsibility to determine whether or not the child has met the requirements. That is the teacher's job. The teacher's job is to educate the child and then to assess the child. So what happens is each jurisdiction has its own grading policy within the quarter. And they've gotten really kind of general. When I was in education, they kind of go the gamut. They go up and down. They used to be really general, then they got really, really specific. Now they're back to kind of being sort of general. And what they say is they talk about, like Baltimore County, for example, they say the grades are based on a body of evidence. And they give teachers some general guidelines. Anne Arundel County, for example, they have like students have to have a specific number of assignments in each marking period, and they have to have it can't be any more than 10% counted. Excuse me. Homework can't be counted any more than 10%. Looking at some of the others real quick. Baltimore County, I mentioned this body of evidence is what's included, and the teacher really has a lot of flexibility. But it also says that the student has to be afforded multiple ways to prove that he or she has obtained the objectives, because ultimately the grades are about, did the student achieve the objectives of the class or of the marking period or of the assessment or whatnot. Anne Arundel County talks about, Baltimore City, 70% of the quarter of the class grade for that marking period, 70% has to be based on assessments. Now, when we hear assessments, it doesn't necessarily mean, you're taking tests and quizzes and all that. It means any form of assessment. When a teacher issues, an assignment and there's a goal and there's objective associated with it, when the teacher collects it, they look at the thing and at the assignment, and they decide, did the student meet the objective? And then they grade them accordingly. So anyway, in Baltimore City, 70% has to be based on the students meeting in the assessments, the meeting the assessment objectives. The remaining 30% can be like classwork and homework and that side, but homework can't be more than 10%. So anyway, these are the kinds of things that they just kind of put in the hopper. It's all electronic, right? Students put the grades, students turn in assignments, teachers put it in the grade book. From there, at the end of the quarter, they get the final quarter grade based on those assessments. Now, the final grade for the class is the only one that the school is really concerned about. That's the final grade. Did you pass the class? Did you not pass the class? If you have 4 marking periods and you have an E and then a D and then another D, well, if you get an E in the last marking period, then that would average out to a D. Or it could be like an E, like 2 E's and then a D, and then if you get a third E, then you're going to fail. It gets very, very tricky, or not tricky, but it gets very, at the end, it's when you get into the end of the year, those kids who are right on the borderline, they need a D in that fourth quarter in order to pass. Or maybe they get an E, a D, like 2 E's and a D, or maybe a couple of E's, but maybe they might, if they get a B, then it might average to a passing grade for the final year. Every jurisdiction has its own little calculations for how they determine what the final grade is, and it's based on an average of those 4 marking periods. And there's also factored in some classes final exams, and those factor in. So they put all these things in the hopper and they create a final grade. But what happens is after this is all computerized, and it is very, very, very easy to change. When I was administrator, I never did this. I swear on my life. Okay, I never went in and changed a grade unless a teacher asked me to. And there's a lot of reasons. Teacher says, hey, I made a mistake. I gave this kid an E, should have been a D, or he made up some work. I told those parents I'm going to change it. Fine. Teachers can do that all they want. So they would call me. I would go in the system. I would change it up and print the kid a new report card. Problem solved. I had that authority. Teachers don't have that authority. I don't think the administrators have that authority anymore. And there's always been this discussion about who should have the authority to do this type of thing. So that's one thing. It is very, very, very easy to change. So it's not like the principals have to sit in these rooms with these stack of these old Scantron sheets, erasing and it's just going in a computer and hitting a couple clicks. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But the real issue here is the tug of war between the administration and the teachers. If you're a teacher and you have a class of, say, 30 kids or 50 kids or whatever, and let's just round it off, saying even 25 kids. You have 25 kids in your class, and at the end of the marking period, 20 of them are getting E's. That's going to get attention. That's going to get attention from the administration. You're going to get called on that. They're going to call you in. I did it before. You call them in and say, hey, you're running a class here. You got 25 kids and 20 of them are failing. What's the problem? And if the teacher's response is, well, the kids just don't get it, it's all on them, that's not going to fly. That's not going to fly. That's where the pressure starts coming from the administration to say, well, you need to get on this. You need to address this. And the answer is not necessarily to reduce your standards, but the answer is to do something. You have to, as a teacher, understand, I got to do something about this. Any good teacher will do that. Right? Now, I'm not trying to blame this on the teachers. There are those kids who are just going to sit there and put their feet up in the desk. They're not going to do anything. They're there because they have to be. There's not a lot you can do about that. That's what I'm saying. But there are others who would say, well, there is something you could do about that. You need to reach these kids. So therein is where that tug of war is between, do you reach these kids? Can you reach these kids? But when you have 25 out of 30 kids or 20 out of 25 kids who are failing your class, something's not right. Maybe you're a first or second year teacher and you need to change some things. Maybe there's other issues, but whatever the case is, that needs to be addressed. And that's where the problem comes. And then what happens is, then there gets this little animosity back and forth. Teachers go back to the faculty room and they go, kids just come in here and they run around the room like crazy, and now they're all failing. They come yelling at me and they're, like it's my fault. It's not necessarily the case. What the administrator's saying is we have to do something. We can't just fail them all and move on and go, aha, you failed. I'm getting even with you. We have to address it somehow. And it's a very, very fine line. So that really is what it comes down to. And then you get some of these kids who get all the way through to the very end of the year, and they're right on that borderline. And the teacher just says, you know what, you didn't do it. I'm sorry. You failed, and you're going to fail this class. And then if an administrator goes behind them and changes that, that's a problem too. Okay, administrators have it is the teacher's responsibility, and administrators need to stand by this. But the administrators need to support those teachers to say, hey, let's find a way that if you got 25 out of 30 kids failing, let's see if we can't get in there and try and help you and sort this out and help these kids succeed a little more. So anyway, when it comes to changing grades, like I said, there's a lot. There's a lot behind the scenes. It's teachers who, there are some teachers who just believe that it's all the kids' fault. The kids walk in, they sit down, they refuse to learn anything, and I'm not going to, And then there are others who believe it's all the teacher's fault because the teachers aren't trying to reach the kids and whatnot. There is a fine line, and it's a happy medium, and it's very, very difficult to describe unless you've actually been in the trenches, as they say. I've been in those conversations many, many times with teachers who have, and it's all documented. You look on the computer, you get a computer printout of you expect it kind of from a new teacher, but there are some teachers who just fail kids by the bucket loads. And you call them in, you say, oh man, you taught 200 kids. You have 5 classes last quarter, roughly about 30 kids in a class. You have 150 kids. 115 of them got D's or E's. Come on, man. What's the problem? Let's get, and if their answer is, wow, it's just kids, they just come, then we need to address it. All right, well, then let's get addressed. So anyway, that tug of war back and forth is really what the issue is, and it's the same thing with discipline, which is a whole different thing. Anyway, I hope this sheds a little bit of light on it. It's a matter of the actual changing of the grade by the administrator or whoever is doing it is a very simple thing. It's a matter of a click on a computer and that grade changes, and they're automatically calculated. It's it's the teacher's responsibility to provide the grades. The problem now is that we used to have the Scantron sheets where you would create the bubbles. Oh God, they were paying you just sit there for hours bubbling in these grades and all this. But they also provided a paper record. I used to take my grades and then I would run them through the Xerox machine before I turn them in. That way, or I'm sure the Xerox machine. You run them through the copy machine, and that way you would have a copy of them before you turn them in. But in any case, it's a tough one. So we'll wait and see. Hopefully, Baltimore City is not in the business of changing grades. But my point here is, even if they are, you probably won't manifest now until the end of the year when you get down to the wire on who's going to pass and who's going to fail. Anyway, hope I didn't go on too long, but just a little bit on that grading. It's a very, very fine line between the pressure from the administration and the responsibility of the teacher. So hope that helps. Don't forget a couple of board meetings. The Board of Anne Arundel County meeting with the State Superintendent tomorrow afternoon on Thursday or Wednesday, and Thursday night, Baltimore County with the Maryland safety school safety folks, and that should be fun. So anyway, thanks. Have a great day.